What kind of person thinks they can stop a sheriff's cruiser with a homemade spike strip and gets away with it? Well, meet Linda Harper, the clipboard-wielding queen of Oak Ridge Estates, who turned a quiet suburb into a battlefield with nothing but duct tape, rusty nails, and an ego the size of a small planet. This isn't a story about a criminal mastermind or a high-speed chase gone wrong. No, this is about a retired busybody who thought she was the law, only to crash headfirst into reality, leaving a trail of shredded tires and stunned neighbors in her wake. It all kicked off on a muggy Tuesday morning in Oak Ridge, a gated community so peaceful the biggest crime of the year was a kid tipping over a recycling bin. Linda, with no cop training, no military background, and zero authority beyond her knack for badgering the HOA board, decided her neighborhood needed protection. Protection from what? Nobody knew. Maybe it was the boredom of retirement, or maybe it was the third glass of cheap Chardonnay she downed while binging old cop shows. Either way, Linda hatched her grand plan, the Oak Ridge Safety Patrol, a name she scribbled on a napkin with the kind of pride usually reserved for Nobel Prize winners. Linda wasn't alone in her delusion. She roped in two neighbors just as bored and twice as clueless. There was George, a handyman with a limp and a habit of saying yes to bad ideas, and Susan, a book club exile who once tried to run background checks on her knitting group. Together, they formed what they called a tactical response team, which was really just three middle-aged folks in matching polo shirts, armed with dollar store walkie-talkies and a dangerous amount of confidence. Linda, ever the ringleader, didn't bother waiting for approval. She fired off a dozen emails to the HOA board, full of buzzwords like perimeter security and CIVY oversight. The board, desperate to stop her spam, mumbled something about reviewing it later. Linda took that as a blank check. Within days, she turned the only road into Oak Ridge into her personal checkpoint. Orange cones swiped from a nearby construction site blocked the lane. Hand-drawn signs screamed, "Authorized personnel only," in a font that screamed, "I just discovered Comic Sans." But the real star of the show was her spike strip, a Frankenstein's monster of old nails, duct tape, and chunks of a broken lawn chair. Linda and George spent an afternoon in her driveway, practicing how to hurl it under her minivan's tires, cheering like they just foiled a bank heist. In their minds, they were suburban superheroes. In reality, they were a lawsuit waiting to happen. That morning, Linda was in her element, posted at the checkpoint like a general on the front lines. Clipboard in hand, a fake badge swinging from her neck printed on her ancient HP inkjet scanned the horizon for threats. Susan lounged under a beach umbrella, sipping Diet Pepsi and pretending this was an FBI sting. George, stuffed into a too-tight tactical vest, clutched the spike strip like it was Excalibur. Their first test came when the newspaper guy rolled up, took one look at the cones, and swerved around them without slowing down. Linda grabbed her walkie-talkie, barking nonsense like, "Code Sparrow, we've got a runner!" Susan nearly choked on her soda, laughing, while George fumbled the spike strip and missed his shot. Linda was livid. They needed a win, and they needed it now. 20 minutes later, they heard the rumble of tires climbing the hill. Linda's eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas. This was the moment to prove their worth. Without even checking who was coming, she screamed, "George, now!" George, loyal but brainless, slung the spike strip across the road. It skidded into place just as the vehicle rounded the bend. For a heartbeat, everything was quiet. Then came the pop-pop-pop of tires exploding, the screech of rubber clawing asphalt, and a sickening thud as the car lurched to a stop. Linda, chest puffed out, marched toward her catch, ready to lecture some imaginary criminal. But when she saw the gold sheriff's star gleaming on the side of the cruiser, her smirk vanished like smoke. Deputy Tom Bradley, a 6 feet 3 inches wall of a man, stepped out, his mirrored sunglasses reflecting the absurdity of the scene, Linda waving her clipboard like a battle flag, George holding a lawn chair full of nails, and Susan munching pretzels under her umbrella. For 3 long seconds, nobody moved. Then Linda, either fearless or clueless, stomped up to Bradley and demanded his ID. The deputy tilted his head, like he was trying to figure out if this was a prank or a fever dream. He glanced at his ruined tires, then back at Linda, and said slow and cold, "Ma'am, you just trashed a sheriff's vehicle. That's a felony." Linda blinked. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her face, but it was way too late. Susan was whispering frantically into the walkie-talkie, George was inching toward the bushes like he could vanish, and Bradley was already radioing for backup. By the time 2 more deputies rolled up, Linda had pivoted from smug to sobbing, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, that she was just keeping Oak Ridge safe. The deputies weren't buying it. One snapped photos of the spike strip now bagged as EVY dents while another catalogued the cruiser's damage. Linda, George, and Susan were plopped on the curb, sweating under the sun, as Linda clung to her clipboard, muttering about ungrateful neighbors. Bradley wasn't done. He surveyed the checkpoint and found a circus of stupidity: fake stop signs, barricades made of folding chairs and plastic chains, even handwritten confiscation forms, taped to mailboxes, claiming the right to seize suspicious items. Neighbors started peeking out, phones recording, as words spread like wildfire. An old guy in a fishing hat chuckled. "Told you Linda would start a war." Another neighbor quipped, "Bet she'll try to run the jail next." At the station, Linda demanded to speak to the sheriff himself, as if her laminated badge carried weight. Her mugshot, with a scowl that could crack glass, later went viral locally. The HOA board, meanwhile, scrambled into damage control, holding an emergency meeting in the community center's rec room. Half the board fretted about lawsuits. The other half gleefully voted to boot Linda from her self-made security chief role. They dug up an old email where Linda pitched her checkpoint idea, and their vague "we'll consider it" reply became their lifeline to dodge blame. The sheriff, a grizzled vet named Walker, took a personal interest after hearing his cruiser was downed by HOA vigilantes. This wasn't just a report, no, it was a full-blown case. Linda faced charges of vandalism, obstruction, reckless endangerment, and illegal traffic control. The HOA risked fines if they'd implicitly greenlit her nonsense, but they swore she acted alone. Court day was a spectacle. Linda strutted in wearing a navy blazer and enough flag pins to start a gift shop, clutching a stack of printouts, HOA bylaws, random blog posts about citizens' arrests, and misquoted Thomas Jefferson. She refused a public defender, claiming the truth was her lawyer. Judge Margaret Holt, a no-nonsense woman with zero patience for theatrics, watched Linda's performance like a hawk. Deputy Bradley testified first, laying out the chaos in brutal detail: the spike strip, the fake badge, Linda's refusal to back down. Linda's cross-examination was a disaster. She asked Bradley if he'd ever jaywalked, as if that erased her crimes. The judge's gavel hit so often it sounded like a metronome. George, sweating bullets, admitted under oath that Linda masterminded everything, and he only went along because she promised coffee and donuts. Susan threw Linda under the bus, too, describing how Linda rehearsed tossing the spike strip like it was an Olympic sport. The prosecutor's knockout punch was Linda's emails, projected for all to see, with gems like, "Secure the perimeter by any means necessary," and a plan for a detention zone by the pool. The courtroom stifled laughs, and Judge Holt's glare silenced them. Linda's defense was a rambling speech about civic duty and standing up to tyranny. It landed like a lead balloon. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came a week later: thousands in fines for the cruiser's repairs, 12 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a 5-year ban from HOA active ties. That last one stung Linda most. Her face twitched like she'd been slapped. Outside, news crews pounced, and Linda, unable to resist, ranted about fighting for freedom. The clip aired that night, and Oak Ridge gathered in levying rooms, cackling at her downfall. The HOA issued a statement disowning her, hired real security, and posted signs. "No unauthorized checkpoints." Someone taped a note below. "This means you, Linda." Linda's community service picking up trash in a bright orange vest became a neighborhood spectacle. Drivers honked, while vying with mock cheer. A social media group, Oakridge Survey Vors, sprouted memes of Linda's badge next to cartoon cops. The HOA tightened rules, banning VY anti-stunts, and the community found unity in mocking her. Deputy Bradley, DRIVYing through months later, saw Linda fishing cans from a ditch. He slowed, tipped a subtle salute, and drove on. Linda didn't look up. In her stubborn heart, Linda probably still thought she was the hero. But Oakridge knew better. When you play cop with nails and arrogance, the only thing you'll catch is yourself.